Hey, White Sox fans, it's Brett Valentini here hosting Dugout Metrics number 4. And I gave these guys a deadline of late May to do our next. So we're like 2 months ahead. It's late March and we're already coming right back at you with number 4. We've got Trevor Lines. He got kicked out of the game room, I think, but former Knight, straight out of Lexington, right? Haven't moved back to Louisville, right? Back to
Yep.
Louisville, right?
Yeah, I got a few more days in Lexington and then I'll be back in Louisville.
All right. Former college middle infielder. We've got current college, I think still left fielder. I don't think they bumped him around yet. It's Luke Smailes coming straight out of Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Welcome, Luke.
Yeah, thanks for having me again. It's good to be back.
And I'm just your humble host. Never really got to have an official NCAA at bat, but did play a number of B games at TCU. I'm a Horned Frog, including the game at shortstop,
Nice.
completely wearing Chuck Taylors due to wardrobe malfunction. So I got some stories too. Not as cool as these guys. They're the Dugout Metrics dudes. And we're going to get right into it because it's been a big couple of days, unfortunately. Let's start with the unfortunately part, and that is Eloy Jiménez battles an outfield wall, loses again. We learned today probably the absolute worst case scenario, given a lot of people were just hoping, hey, some sort of dislocated shoulder, but an actual torn pectoral muscle, apparently as he was hanging on the wall, going after a ball that was good 10 feet away from him to be able to catch. He's out likely. I got to say, it really does seem probably for this season. There does seem a chance with the prognosis that he maybe gets back and gets himself in shape for maybe last 2-3 weeks of a regular season or a postseason. But that's a bizarre situation where you're rushing a guy in who hasn't played all year. So, I mean, at this point, lower expectations and realize it might be 2022 for Eloy. Guys, just right off the bat, reaction to the circumstances, because I definitely got some stuff I want to hit you up with as players and talk directly to this circumstance. But your reactions, first of all?
For me,
Super unfortunate. Yeah, sorry to cut you off, Trevor. But,
no, you're good. You're
yeah,
good.
it's super unfortunate just given the nature of the play. Like you really had no shot of catching that ball, and even if he did, it's spring training. Yeah, it's just, we kind of joked about it that he's becoming a, for himself, he's getting himself hurt in the outfield, and then it's just a matter of time where it's a big enough injury where it's season ending now. So it's a huge blow to the middle of the lineup, and it just stinks. Yeah, the nature in which it happened is just super, super unfortunate.
Yeah, I would echo that. That's pretty much summarizing exactly what I was feeling about it. It's just such a freak, such a fluky thing. And it always seems to happen to Eloy out there. And I know a lot of people are of the impression that he kind of does it to himself with some of the stuff that he does out there, and he's a hazard to himself. But some of the stuff, it's a fluky thing that happens, and it just seems like he's snake bitten out there right now.
Now, in some of Rick Hahn's comments today, I think something that came out, and I'll give Rick some credit here. I think it's sort of taken, not necessarily out of context, but I think what he said maybe doesn't really tell the whole story, but essentially implied that no one has yet, and only when he comes back will he sort of be talked to about like, hey, you really got to tone this down, and you have to adjust the way you play left field. Now that can't really be the case, but I guess, first of all, your thoughts on that, but really both of you guys, you're Trevor, just coming off your college career. Luke, you're still playing. Put yourself in the shoes. Obviously, both. Trevor's a middle infielder. Luke, I'm just going to assume a little smoother out there in left field. But put yourself in a guy like Eloy's shoes, and how much of a challenge would it be to so-called just be the signpost out there in left field? Obviously, instincts kicking in to a degree, but on the other hand, part of your baseball IQ at some point is to know your ability, to know what your physical skills are.
Yeah, it's got to be hard for him because he's grown up and being taught to play hard all the time. You always give 110%, especially coming up in the minor leagues. You're always trying to impress someone with your effort and your intent. And even from a front office standpoint, how you even pass that down to a coaching staff, and as a coaching staff, how you relay that to Eloy, saying, hey, we want you to try, but we really don't want you to try. We don't want you to get hurt. So then he starts probably thinking a little bit too much out there, and he sees a ball and, well, do they really want me to go hard after that one? Is that one they want me to lay off? So it's tough for him to, kind of rationalize that. Even though the play he got hurt on the other day maybe is an exception, like, hey, the ball is probably 10, 15 feet beyond the fence. And it was almost like he was jumping up there just to almost kind of do it.
Right.
And then he got his glove or his wrist kind of caught, and then he had, 230 pounds of weight just kind of hanging on that one arm. So that's the kind of stuff that you just wish wouldn't happen. And it's absolutely amazing that he's gotten himself hurt as much just doing stuff like that as he has in just a couple seasons.
Yeah, it's a really slippery slope when you tell someone to shut it down or not try. He's already so bad out there trying his absolute hardest. His 2019, he was 10 runs below average as far as his play out there. 2020, some of it had to do with Luis Robert taking some of his fly balls, but he was on track to be even worse in a full season. And that's with him trying his absolute hardest. So he's already, one of the worst outfielders out there, and outfield defense is really getting prioritized more than ever in the major leagues with the way that launch angle is taking over and players are consciously trying to hit the ball in the air. It's becoming more important than ever. So to tell one of your outfielders, hey, just shut it down, only catch the things that are right at you, it really puts you in a tough situation. So I don't necessarily know if that's the answer, but like I said, it's one of those things where he can't be hurting himself over and over again. And a lot of it is just tough luck, I think. I don't necessarily know if there's enough information out there to really say, hey, he's a harm to himself out there. I think that there still is a good chance, and kind of what my belief is some of it is just a coincidence, a tough coincidence for the Sox fans to swallow, but a kind of a fluky type thing.
All right, playing off of that, Trevor, I guess I can anticipate what your answer might be here, but okay, he's 24 years old. He's played a lot of innings in left field at a major league level. And yes, despite some of this stuff being fluky, even if he's gone a stretch of 10, 20, 30, 50 games without injury, it's always an adventure. And it's not to say he hasn't made good plays. I remember him when he first came up, he made a play, I think he barehanded a ball off the wall, shockingly quick return into the infield for him. And I thought, holy cow, this guy might be an average left fielder. Who knows? Maybe he can be better than that. And pretty much since then, it's looked worse. So even putting aside the fact that this guy is needed in the lineup for 150 plus games, that bat's needed. And something probably is going to happen at this point, fluky or not, that's going to take him out, let's just say for 10 games a year, because he's playing in the outfield. At what point at age 24 now, 25 when he comes back, do the White Sox have to acknowledge that this might not just be up to him? Ricky Renteria all last year talked about the fact that Eloy took it, he took it as an insult. It was a point of pride for him not to get pulled late in games. He wants to be a guy who's not going to get defensive subbed, which any player wouldn't want that. At what point does it get taken out of Eloy's hands and the White Sox have to step in and say, listen, we have put a significant investment in this guy. We know what he can do, even if it's a diminished value in terms of WAR, as a DH, as a young DH, at least he's playing those 150, 160 games. And is that going to come as soon as when he returns later this year or in 2022, when the White Sox say, all right, here's the new plan?
Yeah, I mean, you linked me to a really good article that I wasn't aware of that Joe Reeses did in 2019 in regards to the difference between a DH versus a left fielder and whether the sacrifice is worth it. And just to give a little bit of insight into that, the difference basically in WAR is 10 runs as far as like the positional adjustment for WAR calculation goes between a left fielder, a corner outfielder, and a DH. As I mentioned, in 2019, he was 10 runs worse than average out there in left field. So basically, you could have stuck him at DH and it would have made no difference if you had an average left fielder out there. Based on the eye test, to me, he looked like he did have a little bit of improvement last year. I didn't think he was quite as bad as what I remember from 2019. But even if he's 8 runs below average, that negligible difference of him sitting in the DH spot and trying to remain healthy might, as you mentioned, might be worth it. It just is tough with the White Sox and the way that the structure of the team is. They have so many of those DH types. It's going to be tough to figure out how to get Eloy into that full-time DH role when you have an aging Jose Abreu, you have Andrew Vaughn, you have a catcher in Yasmani Grandal that you want to keep in the lineup even when he's not behind the plate. So that does make it tough to have Eloy clogging that DH hole. We'll see what happens this year and, how they proceed with that left field spot and see if things take care of themselves there. But it'll be interesting next offseason to see how they go with it.
Okay, Luke, you're a smart dude. Tell us you figured out the solution.
Yeah, I mean, the way I've looked at it is, Eloy would probably be the left fielder until Jose Abreu moves on, whether that be he retires or, the Sox cut ties with him and he signs somewhere else, which is kind of tough because we know how much they like Vaughn, and Vaughn was pretty much well slated to be the DH this year. So it puts Eloy and the Sox in a tough position where they probably know, hey, this guy, we have enough evidence that he needs to be a DH, but we just, we can't do it right now, which is why we talked about, I think a couple podcasts ago, about maybe the notion of trading Vaughn before wouldn't be that crazy just because Eloy needs to be a DH, maybe trading Vaughn for like an ace type starting pitcher, but they've shown that they're very committed to Vaughn and they think he can do anything because now he might be the new left fielder. So
I was just going to say, in a very strange way, it's just solved itself because I think we have a new left fielder. Yes, tomorrow in his first professional game at left field, and I'm going to guess he probably didn't play it at the college level either. Andrew Vaughn is starting in left field and apparently will play all weekend until camp breaks. We only got 3 games left. So your White Sox left fielder for the remainder of Cactus League play is Andrew Vaughn, who has never played left field in his life, which it's an entirely separate podcast to talk about how curious it is for a team, any team wanting to protect its young players. And let's face it, Andrew Vaughn isn't exactly the typical young player. He's a high profile college bat, and he's taken on any challenge the White Sox have given him, and he wants to do this. But, oh, wow, jumping from A-plus ball to the majors was already something that scared everybody. How can he be the DH? Now he's not the DH. He may be the left fielder. So I guess let's talk about what in the world the solutions could be to this, given the fact that Adam Engel is already sidelined, who would have been clearly the guy slotting in at left. And somehow you're going to have Adam Eaton playing pretty much all the time, maybe subbing out a little bit for Laory. In right field, the depth, and I would argue the failure offseason by GM Rick Hahn has reared its head before the season has even begun, and it's a shame to have to be a little bit down going into a season that we're all very excited about. But listen, this is why that roster spot 20 to 26 is so crucial, and why the Sox seemingly punting on it when you're talking about the even the mid to the end of your rotation. And the bench, it's incomplete. And though you're not going to anticipate a couple injuries like this before opening day even comes, what if it does? If you're a team that's aspiring to a pennant, I think you got to shore up a little bit better than, God bless you, Nick Williams, than running Andrew Vaughn out there into left field. Guys, what is this solution going to be? What do you see this Vaughn experiment ending up as? Because I don't think it's a given that it's going to be better than Eloy, even in terms of the safety out there, much less the defensive ability.
Yeah, I think the good news for Vaughn is that he doesn't have a super high bar to clear defensively. So as long as he's A, not hurting himself, and B, it's not affecting his offense, let's say that he can pass out there. Then we have the opportunity for my guy, Zack Collins, to finally get his shot. The team leader in OPS right now for the Sox and Cactus League play. And fittingly, he homered today. So maybe that is a sign that he is finally going to get his shot. I have the numbers in front of me. He's hitting 333 with a 429 on base, 528 slug. So 956 OPS leads the team. So maybe he finally gets his shot here. And maybe you see Vaughn play left field against righties with Collins as a DH, and then against left-handers, you see Larry Garcia in left, and then Vaughn can kind of get that time at DH with Eaton maybe now playing both against lefties and righties as long as Engel's out.
Luke, that was a very professional slide in of your guy, Zack Collins, and a question that didn't necessarily address him at all. You put him front and center.
Yep.
I'm surprised you're not running him out there maybe to play left. Okay, Trevor, solutions that might not quite focus on Zack Collins, although great point brought up by Luke. And hey, listen, deserving. The guy's hit the crap out of the ball, and he clearly has made a deserving case to break camp. 3 catchers or not, to break camp with this White Sox team. But that aside, we got a hole in left field, and right now we're filling it with Andrew Vaughn. And I'm not sure I'm less frightened than when Eloy was out there.
Yeah, it's almost unbelievable that right now, with the way the roster is constructed, is the probably best solution, is to stick a guy that's never had a game of experience in the outfield in his entire life, at least from college on. He had 10 pitching appearances in college, and that was 10 more than he had in the outfield, into the major leagues in the outfield as he's trying to figure out major league pitching as well. But that, as Luke mentioned, that probably is the solution, unless you want to look outside the organization via some guys that are still on the market or some potential trade candidates. That seems to be the internal solution if that's where they're going to go. Touching on Zack Collins, I'm a huge Zack Collins guy too. I love the fact that he walks so much, and he's your 3 true outcomes type guy, and he has been tearing the cover off the ball this spring. One issue that Zack Collins has in the past throughout his minor league career, very streaky. So he can flip the switch and take a month and a half of production and kind of make that count for the whole year, and then be ice cold for other stretches. So I love the fact that he's hot right now, but it just is another question mark out there. It seems like that injury just opened up a whole bag of question marks and chips that need to fall into place and kind of break the White Sox way. You need Vaughn to be passable in the outfield. You need Vaughn to be able to hit at the major league level. You need Collins to show that what he's done this spring isn't a fluke, and, consistently bring that throughout the year. You're probably going to need some of these Ceases and the Michael Kopechs to break out in order to make up for some of that lost offensive production. So it really has opened up a whole can of worms, and, we'll see what happens, but it's definitely made their margin for error a lot more thin.
It's funny. Billy Hamilton's name hasn't even come up yet. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to talk about some good White Sox news that got completely swallowed up by the horrible Eloy Jiménez news today. And we're going to maybe try to, if we have time, to shore up or have a little take on what we think the roster is going to look like once they break camp on Sunday. We're going to take a quick break and be right back with you. Hey, White Sox fans, if you're watching us on YouTube, hey, nothing happened. No break at all. We're back. We're back real quick because that's how important all this information on Dugout Metrics is to get to you. It's Luke Smailes and Trevor Lines, and now we're going to talk about some good news. Thankfully, Trevor had a nice piece handy that he wrote as his very first piece on Southside Sox about a year and change ago, about Oscar Colás, who is a two-way player out of Cuba. The Cuban pipeline is stronger than ever. Funneling player, basically all the Cubans is the slogan that the White Sox can play. And I think it's somewhat legit because they're not missing on many. The news is he is decided, obviously, we already knew that he was sitting out his signing period that just passed, and he's going to wait to sign next January with the White Sox. That's the report. Going to take up about half of the bonus money the White Sox have, which I think is an incredible bargain. The White Sox will hand that over as quick as possible. We don't know a lot about the guy other than the fact that he has played professionally in Japan. Two-way guy. Trevor, you wrote about him. I'm going to hand it off to you. This is great news. I think we can all agree this is wonderful news. But give us a little bit of insight on him. You scouted him a little bit for that article, and just to share a little bit with us.
Yeah, I'd like to be able to brag a little bit more about calling it a year and a half in advance, but with the way that the White Sox have that Cuban pipeline, I think the writing was on the wall and everyone kind of was expecting the White Sox to be his top potential destination. But it's cool that, it actually happened, and that article is not going to go to waste or go to a different fan base. But basically, there was very limited information that I had when I wrote that little scouting report on him. But it does seem like a lot of the stuff that those few videos showed seems to be pretty accurate with how people are looking at him right now. Some of the videos from earlier 2018, 2017, he was a big body. He definitely looked a little bit out of shape, and was going to need to, slim down. And it looks like the more recent videos, he has done that. I would say if I was going to compare him to someone on the White Sox, he would be more of the Eloy Jiménez mold, where he's a bat first guy, a big power guy. And I'm not saying he's going to turn out to be that, but I'm just saying that's kind of the type player he is versus a Cespedes, which is more of the 5-tool Luis Robert comp type guy. Left-handed bat, seems to be relatively average MLB speed based on video of a triple that he legged out. And somewhat of a slower bat, but big power. He's struggled a little bit in Japan with strikeouts, so he's going to need to clean some things up in his swing in order to catch up to major league pitching. But big potential. The Sox are counting on that bat to be his calling card and that power potential. And adding another lefty into the organization that can potentially fit into that lineup in 2, maybe 3 years is always great.
I'm gonna get your thoughts in a second, Luke, but I love the fact that even as Yoelqui Cespedes was signing, and we knew that Norge Vera was also sort of in the pipeline there, and there wasn't going to be room for that class even before certainly Vera was announced, maybe even either was announced. Colás was big. He and Luis Robert were both like White Sox. He's like wearing a cap. There were like these little teasing little Instagram things. It's like, wait, how can can this be happening when, this signing period, they don't have any room? That's tasty to think that, like, really, Jerry Reinsdorf can sit back and be just like, he can smoke his cigar from points, who knows, and just say, they're going to come to us first. It started with Luis Robert, who said basically it was Cardinals and White Sox. He knew, Cardinals, White Sox equal money, maybe even less money come from the Sox. He knew what the history was with the White Sox. He'd talked enough or known enough of Jose Abreu to know this is the place he wanted to be. And that's just strengthening as every player is being added. Now, Colás is a two-way player. We just drafted a guy last summer. It might be just a stretch in Addison Coffey, but it's said that the White Sox are going to allow him to pursue being a two-way player, both pitching and I want to say third base. Is that something that intrigues Luke, or just your overall assessment of what you've seen of Colás?
Yeah, I think we've seen with Ohtani, it's really hard. He's dealt with some injuries. He's such a talented bat, and he's obviously has ace potential stuff on the mound too, but it's just tough with dealing with time. He pitches once a week, he starts and then he wants to DH the other, 4, 5, 6 days. I think with Colás, what they could do is maybe never try to develop him as a starter. He can kind of be that valuable piece where maybe he's your left or right fielder, maybe he's your DH, and then he's a guy you can bring out of the bullpen. Whether that's a lockdown end of the game type of pitcher, if that's what we see from him, or maybe that's just a guy you bring in when you need to eat some innings. And he's a passable guy you can throw out there that can keep you in ball games. So I think they should definitely do their due diligence and just see, hey, is this a possibility, or is the bat a little too special to, kind of waste bullets and trying to develop him as a pitcher where, there's more opportunity to get hurt, as we've seen with Ohtani. But I think the theme here with both Colás and Cespedes is that they're both kind of raw. We haven't seen a lot of them, and they're unique because they're not like 17-year-old kids we're signing here. They're 22 and 23. So we think the next couple of years, maybe we'll see him in Chicago. But again, both raw, both you kind of want to see more and see what they can do once they get stateside and start playing some affiliated games. But there's a lot of, I think, industry-wide separation on what their potentials are in terms of, there's no question with the tools, but it's, can they actually perform on the field against high-end minor league pitching and then eventually major league pitching.
Yeah, and in both cases, you're dealing with quite a layoff. With Cespedes, he's been off for a year plus. Colás is going to be, he will be off for a year plus because he's going to have to be waiting. He won't even get into the White Sox organization until 2022. And it's a challenge. Hopefully shake that rust off pretty quickly, but that's another hurdle. And these guys have plenty, be it language, culture, layoff, hype, pressure. It's an enviable position, but it's not a gimme that we get Cespedes starting in 2022 and Colás in 2023. People are already talking that he's going to be with the White Sox in 2022. I don't see how that's in any way possible, but it sure is great to have that kind of talent just clogging up the pipeline, which we could really use here at the 4A or the AAA level. Let's seg, I suppose, into what the rosters...
I got one more thing,
Oh,
Brett.
please, Trevor, lay it on us.
just to touch on the two-way aspect of it. From what I've seen more recently, I think a lot of guys think that he's going to be a bat. I think that you can kind of fall back on that potentially if he fizzles out. That can be kind of his backup plan. But right now, I think he's more of a thrower than a pitcher. That arm is going to definitely play from the outfield, though. I saw one video of him throwing out a guy at the plate, and he has an absolute cannon out there. So that'll be good to see. As far as the industry consensus, it seems like more guys than not are actually higher on Colás than they are on Cespedes. So we got two guys potentially that have that high potential, but still, like Luke said, like you said, haven't played in a while, older prospects and have a lot of question marks too, but they're great dart throws to have. So excited to see what they do here in the next couple of years.
Well, it's telling that he didn't pitch, I don't think, at all in Japan when he's playing over there. So that might be a little tell that this isn't going to be something that's going to translate into the majors or even the minors. This is a good way to attack evaluation. And I wish the White Sox had applied it perhaps in the offseason for the major league level. But hey, who's one and who's two? Let's get them both. Let's just go after them both. All right, I guess as we are running short on podcast time, let's talk about how we see the roster perhaps shaping up. I guess the easy question to attack perhaps is, first off, who that last pitcher is going to be, with Jimmy Cordero out with Tommy John and Ronaldo Lopez being sent to Schaumburg to just stretch out because they don't want him as a bullpen arm, apparently, per La Russa. That leaves that 13th spot on the pitching staff open. Do you have a sense of who that 13th player might be? I'm going to guess that we're not all going to agree.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Nick Turley, who they just claimed off waivers from Oakland. I think it's going to end up being a really sneaky, underrated move. I didn't connect the dots at first that he was a Harvard Westlake guy that also, I'm assuming, was coached by Ethan Katz when he was in high school. So he's an older guy, young pitcher. He doesn't have a ton of major league experience, but he's 31. But the thing that I really like about him is that according to my expected run value model, his fastball was really good. It was actually the 7th best overall pitch type, which sounds kind of weird, but it's because it plays so well off his elite curveball that gets elite movement from it. And he also tunnels really well. So I posted the other day when I saw the signing, kind of a video overlay of him against the Cubs last year, where his fastball started at the top of the zone. And it was an overlay with this curveball and how long they look like they're the same pitch before they kind of go. The curveball goes straight down and the fastball kind of stays up. So I think it's a really interesting pickup and something that the Sox are allowing Ethan Katz to kind of work his magic and try to develop a guy that, again, he has some background previous work with.
Yeah, just seeing Luke's tweet the other day, that had me excited about the pickup too. And I wouldn't be shocked if he is that 13th guy in the back end of the bullpen. He's a lefty. Obviously, as Luke mentioned, great stuff, top of the line stuff. And the only thing that's kind of led to his mixed results so far, it seems like, is some command and some control issues. The walks are high, and then the command of those pitches is not the best in the zone either, but let Ethan Katz work with him. Jace Fry is a guy that is going to be out for the first few months. Lefty, similar type guy with big stuff, but shaky command. So I think he can fill that role and let Katz hopefully work his magic. As they say, Katz can fix him. So we'll see what happens.
This is an interesting flyer, given that this is a team that's all in for a pennant. And you're basically asking now to carry a 13th arm and sort of learn on the job, work together on their job. They've got a week to do it before the regular season begins. I get that, he's got no options. So if they do try to designate him and sneak him to Schaumburg, it might not work. But it's an interesting call. I guess I see the logic in just sort of taking that flyer and saying, okay, let's see how it works. He had 2 walks today in his inning. I think he pitched. So, maybe not the best start, but certainly there is that relationship. There's no confusion as to why the guy's on the White Sox. Really, for a lefty, a guy I thought did really well. He's already been designated, so he's not coming back. I think Cody Medeiros really acquitted himself pretty well and maybe made himself that lefty who gets called up first, because I think he pretty much took on any challenges given. I know he doesn't necessarily have the high end stuff that the Turley's boasting, and obviously doesn't have a connection with Katz, but I think it's probably safe to say that maybe Turley is the guy, even though that goes a little bit against the grain of having 13 guys you can roll out there and feel really confident in, but maybe you never really do, especially when you're talking about your 13th pitcher. All right, we're running short, so let's just talk on the lineup side. Let me hit you with this one. Based on these 2 injuries, Engel's out, whether he starts the season on the injured list or not. Obviously, Eloy's out, and that benefits outfielders on the team. Certainly, Billy Hamilton seems now like a lock to break camp with the team. But who from these injuries, who on the bench or who wasn't going to be on the bench, who benefits the most for these unexpected openings? Who's maybe the guy who ends up becoming that 26th man on this team who wasn't going to be?
I think it's probably Zack Collins. I think just from the Eloy injury, I think Collins probably wouldn't have made the team. I think with Engel going down, I think there was a lot of talk that Hamilton's going to make the team as kind of that pinch runner, defensive replacement type of guy. But I think now that the DH spot is open, assuming that Vaughn can play left field, I think Collins makes the team. If this week they see Collins in the outfield and say, you know what, it's just not, or I'm sorry, Vaughn in the outfield, and they say it's not going to work, then it could be interesting, because then I think you could see maybe Nick Williams out there, who's also had a pretty good spring. I think he has a 900 OPS or above, but he had a couple, or I think 1 or 2 really good years with Philly before they signed Bryce Harper, and he kind of got pushed to a bench role. But I think he could land there if Vaughn in fact can't play left field.
Who's the lucky guy, Trevor?
Yeah, I mean, Nick Williams is a guy with a high pedigree. He was a big time prospect in the Phillies organization. I remember reading stuff about him coming up. At one point, he was their number 2 overall prospect, and mixed bag in the major leagues. Hasn't really shown too much, but I could see that happening, as Luke mentioned, to get someone in there with outfield experience, but also not just completely punting at the plate like a Billy Hamilton would be, and leave Billy Hamilton in that late inning pinch run defensive replacement role. Interested to see what happens with Danny Mendick. He early on in the spring didn't really impress me too much, but lately he's kind of come on strong. So we'll see what happens there. And then Zack Collins, as far as the guy that's going to get the most at bats from this injury, I think he's the clear choice there. I was thinking he potentially was still going to make the team, but his at bats would be limited. But now it looks like that's definitely freed up some time for him.
Yeah, I was going to ask about Danny, because I'm not sure that he was a guy who was going to make the cut. But if you've got Leori Garcia maybe in a regular starting role due to these injuries, you've got no infield backup, and you'd think you would need some infield backup. So yeah, he probably wasn't a guy who maybe was looking to make the cut, and he might be a guy. He'd be my pick as a guy who sort of squeezes in because you think you might want that flexibility. He's a guy who has played, I think, at least a little bit of left field in the minors as well, which I think is open right now on the south side. My goodness. Any other roster surprises to expect come cut down day Sunday, Monday?
I don't think so. I think before the Eloy injury, we were pretty confident on the group that was going to be out there. And I think now, like we said, kind of last minute add, maybe Turley and then Collins might be the two guys. But there won't be any Ronaldo Lopez that we have to endure in the beginning. So there's that.
I like the Nick Williams possibility, but again, it's not really a guy that's going to run out there. You're going to run out there in left field right from opening day on a team that aspires to the pennant. We're running short on time. There's so much more we could have talked about. Of course, we could have gone deep into the night and into tomorrow, but for now, I'm just going to thank Trevor Lyons, straight out of Lexington, Luke Smailes, rocking it in Cedar Rapids, and me somewhere else. Guys, thanks a lot for joining. Let's make sure we do this. I'm not going to hold you to once a week, but let's do this real soon.
Bubble wrap the rest of the team before next week.
No doubt about
seriously,
it.
Let's just make it to opening day at this point.
All right. Thanks everybody for watching, listening, and reading. We'll have more Dugout Metrics for you as soon as we can get to you.